We're here today wrapping up what amounts to about a 10-12 year effort to bring back a freshwater mussel to the river systems that's been gone for many years. It's exciting to science because it was a species that people thought was extinct. And it's always exciting when you find a population that still exists of something you thought was gone forever. Since it was first found again in 1995, people have been working across state lines, across agencies to try and find a way to restore the species back to its historic range. So that's exciting for science. For people, freshwater mussels are an integral part of our natural rivers and streams. They have a purpose. Their role in the ecosystem is to clean our water for us. So they're constantly filtering the water. They bring in dirty water. They take all the particles, the food, the algae, the silt, even the chemicals, and they spit out clean water. So they're essentially cleaning our water for free. The more mussels we have, the cleaner the water is, and the cleaner the water, the better it is for people who depend on the water. People who live on the river, people who use water, we all use water, industries use water, people use water in their homes. Ultimately, all that water is tied together to our rivers. Whether it goes through a well or comes from a pipe in the river, it all depends on the health and the quality and the clarity of our water in the rivers. And that's what the mussels help us achieve. This particular group of mussels, they're called purple cat's paw, pearlymussels, and this family is called pearlymussels because when you look inside them, and they're beautiful mother of pearl shells, which of course used to be part of a commercial industry for pearls. They're no longer used for that, but they're called pearlymussels. There are about 300 species in North America, and the Ohio River system has over 130 of them. So this group of animals is fascinating, and their shapes and colors and sizes are all very different. The purple cat's paw is a relatively small mussel, but it's tied into very clean sand, gravel, and cobble rivers, and that's why we're putting it back here, because the Ohio River has clean sand, gravel, and cobble. Back when the Ohio River Valley was settled, when people used the river for navigation and our industries grew up, the steel industry, coal mining, other industries that grew along the river, they used the river poorly. People didn't treat the rivers very well. So we had pollution problems. Learning a little bit about mussels and what they need to survive, in addition to clean water, they need a healthy fish population. They use the fish to reproduce. It's a very elegant dance. Their babies have to travel on fish in order to find new areas to live. So the industries that polluted the rivers, that may have killed the fish, cut off the reproductive abilities of some of the mussels, so they just died of old age. They had no way to reproduce when their fish hosts were gone. This species is really they're just now learning about what fish it uses. They use darters, bottom fish that hang out on the bottom most of the time, relatively small to medium-sized fish. And those darters like to hang around cobbles and rocks and gravel. A lot of other fish, mussel species will use things like bass or catfish or sauger, walleye, freshwater drum. Depending on the species, they could use a different kind of fish. What they do in the laboratory, mussels in the river, as I say, they're filtering material out of the water, algae, plankton, a little bit of detritus, broken up leaves and things. Well, that's what they feed them in the lab. They actually culture certain types of algae in a laboratory setting, and they feed them, the mussels, the algae and the plankton and whatever they're growing in these giant tubes that grow algae. What we're doing is we're setting a release site for these mussels. So we wanted to put them in an area that had good habitat, some nice cobble and some boulders and gravel and sand for them to burrow into, and then kind of looking at what fish would be using the particular habitat. And we found a really good mixture of that habitat, and we set a frame on the bottom. And then this afternoon the divers will go down on the frame, and they'll actually by hand place the little mussels in the substrate. They'll basically, we'll each carry a little bag, and we'll have the mussels in the bag, and we'll just take the mussels out and poke your finger in amongst the gravel and the sand and stick the mussel in and let them, you saw them how they move. They'll move right away, and they'll move that foot, and they'll burrow themselves right down in the river bottom. I feel like I'm constantly discovering new things about them. after 25, 30 years, I'm still learning things about mussels that people never knew. Or I'm seeing things at the bottom of the river that people never get to see. How many people get to jump in the Ohio River and go down 10 to 15 feet and watch them along the bottom?